Welcome back, my little phoenixes, to
What to Watch Now,
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And in today's episode, we are talking about Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Season 2, Episode 7, Chapter 18, The Miracles of Sabrina Spellman. In this episode, all hell breaks loose, or like everything you possibly were comfortable gets taken away. We take away your safety blanket. A lot of shit goes down. Remember we got that crazy fucking end at the end of last episode? I mean, like, I don't know what I was thinking, but I think somewhere in my brain, I probably subconsciously was like, we're going back to, like, Baxter High, right? Like, we're going back to dumb problems with, who likes who and first dates and kisses. Nope, we're keeping the stakes high. With both Sabrina truly coming into her own as a weird prophet. I say weird because what is she a prophet of? Ooh. And in addition to that, just Father Blackwood being a dick on like a whole nother level. Like we got code red dick level at this point. So at the very end of the episode, we don't see it, but Sabrina must have collapsed. Like I said before, we're not really sure where her power is coming from. So she could have been possessed for a moment. Either way, it took a big toll on her and she just passed out, and Harvey must have caught her midair. Great athletics. By the way, this always concerns me. You can be very athletic or capable as a person. Things like catching a human in the air, the movies make it seem like, oh yeah, but of course. If you have, if you're remotely strong and the person weighs 100 pounds, of course, a dead person's body weight, just dead body weight, plummeting. She wouldn't fall so hard through your arms that she would accidentally like pull herself through to the very bottom. Just pointing that out. Always still crazy. I don't want you to think that all these things are possible in the movies. So he catches her and he brings her into the dormitory room. At this point, we see Prudence is like trying to mentally process all this shit again, being like realizing she's the bully to basically Jesus 2.0. And at the same time, Hilda is emotionally freaking out because obviously she's devastated at the idea that Sabrina might have potentially died or is in a process. And she's trying to deal with Ambrose because Ambrose is not healing. Again, I do not think it's the end of these angels coming after the witches. And by the way, I'm not a fan of that. I don't, like, I'm not against the idea of angels being a thing, but, like, spoilers, if you watch Supernatural, I'm reviewing it on my other series right now, but we learn that angels are basically dicks in Supernatural and are not to be trusted, not unlike demons as well. They're both kind of have their own agendas, but that one angel in particular ends up becoming an interesting facet. So we have this dynamic of angels and demons talking on a more casual level. In fact, there's even a scene where an angel and demon are just kind of both agreeing that they feel like pawns in a greater scheme and it's tireless grunt work and they hate it. That stuff's interesting. I don't know if this show will get there. I mean, unless we introduce a third boy option for Sabrina and he's an angel, I mean, I can get down with that. I love her having her pick of the boys. I'm not against that as an idea. We could have a true love triangle and she's in between all of them. I'm all for that. So, again, still worried about the idea of angels returning, but anyways, whatever they stabbed Ambrose with, he's not healing. So they have some sort of magic of their own, and Ambrose's blood is going out of control. Hilda's acting is out of control as well with her emotional upsetness. It's interesting because she doesn't have a lot of screen time, but whatever she's given, she makes the most of, whether it's comedic in a very subtle way, or just having to well up in the most convincing tears of either passion or fear. She's just love her as an actress and love her as a character in general. So everything seems like it's going to shit. Everyone's trying to process what happens. And Sabrina just fucking comes back to life. She comes back to life, pulls out her own arrows. We don't even see it. We just see her holding them. And she says, I think I can help. Almost as if she's suddenly in like a confidence with her capabilities, which is interesting. I want to point out, we'll get to the Harvey comic reference in a second, but she successfully heals Ambrose and Ambrose comes back to life. Again, this is still a really big deal. Everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? and surprised that she's pulling off these. I mean, they're miracles. They truly are. I guess, for all their wordplay in this show, miracles are miracles for the evil or the good in this world. They are beneficial to all, and I guess it's an interesting conversation of like perspective of what you consider to be to the benefit, because it's not beneficial to bring witches back to life if they're quote unquote evil. Just an interesting perspective. And again, I always like those conversations because you can talk about good and evil in any context, no matter what religious background you're from. But I really like the conversation where, ultimately, I have the belief that somewhere there's like a huge in between, that if you go beyond all of it, that's just kind of, how do I put this? Like, good and evil is oversimplifying something a lot more complex. Think about like nature. Nature's a great example. Interestingly enough, in witchcraft, there's the belief that nature is not good or evil, but just this pure neutral. That's what being in the universe basically is, so to speak. That like, could you argue a tree dying is negative or bad? Yes, but what if it fertilizes the other trees in the area? So then that's good. A storm ruining something. Is that really inherently evil or bad? No, it's just kind of what it is. So that little moment with the discussion of miracles kind of brings up that greater idea. And I think that idea does exist in this world and in this conversation, despite there being two different factions. I think Sabrina kind of almost represents just like a mild note of that. Anyways, so Sabrina's kind of in full confidence, even though she's just resurrected herself and then her cousin, and everyone's thankful, but just basically terrified at that moment. And then she ends up having a conversation with Harvey, which, by the way, God love that boy and his gusto, but the man has no powers. He's just a little farm boy with a gun. And I always crack up when he wants to help out and everyone's like, you gotta leave, Harvey. And I feel bad because he kind of feels this sense, and I can understand why he's over Sabrina in that way. Like, think about it. Every time he gets close to her, he's basically told to be a good boy and sit by the door. I mean, that's very infuriating, especially when you feel capable. But the reality is, Harvey, in all seriousness, go sit by the door. You have nothing you can really offer. Like, he was lucky because he's human, so he was able to come in and catch Sabrina. I mean, they even have that romantic moment with each other for a second where she says, you're always there to catch me, thank you. But in reality, if she fell to the floor and she was going to resurrect herself anyways, she was going to come to life anyways, you know what I mean? Either way, his help is always wanted. He's a sweet boy. But anyways, he makes this great reference to her, and I thought it was kind of great timing because remember the whole like Dark Phoenix thing is coming out. Perfect time to bring up this reference, but it is actually a great reference to Sabrina. The idea of something coming alive in her cosmically. And again, it brings up the conversation, like, was this always in Sabrina and she's just coming alive to it? Is she only now being given the ability? It's just an interesting conversation because it starts to bring up the idea of what she is and what she represents. And Sabrina even admits, like, she doesn't know. Like, she's not really quite sure how it happened she could have theoretically died and then it kind of, like, activated her. So what seemed like she was dying the first time, she may have died a second time from being overwhelmed from that power. So she technically resurrected herself twice, if we're going to get down to it. So anyways, she gets a little bit of an insecure moment with Nick, by the way. He's suddenly not becoming my favorite. I can already feel it. I know we had a conversation of maybe he's the devil. Again, he really could be, but he's playing it a little too well, and we have too many moments where Nick is having these kind of like very human moments of worrying over Sabrina like a boyfriend, and I don't feel like he's putting on a show for anyone. I just feel to convince them. I feel like he really is Nick Scratch. He's not the devil, so that's just an idea out there. But either way, you could tell he's becoming insecure, and I can understand, like, Harvey's her ex, that was a pivotal moment, but what is with people being so insecure? Like, she has done nothing, and this includes this episode, but reassured him that she really is into him. I think she'll always, like, worry and want the best for Harvey, but as far as we've seen throughout the season, she really has committed her loyalty to Nick and made it clear that she isn't into anyone else. Even though as witches and wizards, you can be. That's totally okay in their book, so I don't know why Nick would be upset. I'm just pointing that out. He's been with all three of the weird sisters. So he gets a little jealous and has that moment, and she goes home, and she kind of like is just chilling out, trying to register all this. She even has a conversation with Salem, which I wish he would talk. I'm just going to keep pointing that out. By the way, this is a small little moment. What is the deal with the witches in the show and candles? There is so many candles. Like, their candle budget is crazy. Like, no one can do anything without casually lighting at least 30 candles. Like, can you imagine how much of their time is eaten up? Considering how much time is saved, like, for all the time they save time through magic means, a lot of time is wasted just lighting candles, unless there's some incantation that lights 30 candles at once. Interestingly enough, I'll just sideline this because, you know, in this show, I love to break down witchcraft information because I just happen to know a lot about it because I have another podcast called Mystery Storytime Podcast, and through that, I've really learned a lot. Candle magic, it's a thing. Many people have different perspectives of how it goes because that's how witchcraft goes. It's all subjective and stuff like that, but the essential idea with candle magic, and you can do a lot of different things with candle magic, but the idea is that you're infusing it with some sort of will or power or energy. So some people base candle magic based on colors. So you'd start with a color that correlates to your ideas. Maybe you use red for confidence, yellow for abundance, green for money, things like that. Even then, that's subjective because you might correlate blue with confidence. So you can use blue, whatever speaks to you. So you use a candle, and some people just light it and they meditate over that spell or idea, and that's it. Other people might put some sort of herbal, like this was where herbology and kitchen magic gets involved. They might cover it with, so like let's say you want to do something that involves like abundance and money. You might cover it in certain essential oils or certain herbs that correlate to that idea because you're basically giving more energy that will help your spell come into fruition either on or around the candle. And when you're lighting this candle, the idea is that many people will quote unquote call it charging it. So what you do when you're charging it is you are either just stroking your hand over the candle. Again, this is where it gets really specific. Some people are diehards. They're like, you have to do it from the base to the tip. Others say you start from the middle and then you work your way up, depending on if you want to cancel out a curse or make something positive happen in your life. There's so many rules that people either live by or believe. And when you're doing this candle magic, you're charging it up with this idea. And after you go to light it, that idea that has been accumulated in your candle then gets kind of released into you. You imagine it releasing into you. But some witches just straight up will light a candle and just kind of have it next to them. They don't charge it up. It's just the candle being lit is enough. So it's kind of all your preference. One more thing I wanted to add is some people will use the idea of a candle as representation. And this is when it gets also into cord magic. Again, cord magic as a whole. Like I said, I know a lot about this shit. Magic with candles involves, with cord magic and specifically, is like you might have one candle that represents that thing that you want. Again, maybe you were working on your confidence, and then another candle might represent you. And then what you will do is you tie a cord, as in like any sort of string or something like that, around one candle and connect it to the other. And the idea is by lighting these two and meditating over it, you are willing and connecting yourself to that idea. So really interesting. And they weren't doing candle magic in this, but maybe the candles all being lit during the time she's taking the bath. I mean, they were all red. Maybe it was a confidence thing. She was feeling not confident about who she is. You never know how deep the set design lore gets. So anyways, we get a whole funny, cute moment with Hilda and Ambrose kind of calling her out. This is really those self-aware moments in the show, how much Sabrina just wants to move from one moment to the next. She just likes to go, go, go. And Hilda kind of points out, like, we just had something traumatic happen. We almost just lost you and Ambrose, and somehow you're okay. Maybe it'd be a good idea if we just had a cute little picnic inside. It's raining, we just take the day off. And that's so unlike Hilda. She's all about, like, be with your mortal friends and so on and so forth. And in that moment, Sabrina makes what should be a cute moment. She makes it seem dreamy and sweet. That's why I loved how they kind of redefined horror in that moment, where she changes the weather to sunniness. And the room is bright. She looks so sweet. She smiles and she leaves. But it leaves a haunting image on both Hilda and Ambrose's face. And they look at each other and they're like, oh, so cool. You just, she just changes the weather now. All right. Again, we get more lore that these type of things, messing with nature, death, things that are natural, are really big stakes. And it's huge that she's doing them kind of so quickly. We also get more information delivered to us throughout this episode that everything comes with a stake. Not like The Order. Oh my god. I did that episode. You should totally check it out. It's a very fun conversation to have. You should. I really loved that podcast episode. But that show and its lore drove me kind of fucking nuts. And one of its dumb rules was that magic has consequences. Like, at all. Like, to do a simple memorization spell might murder someone, which it's like, why would you want to do magic then? I know there's evil fucks out there that are, like, cool with that, but, like, for me, I'd be like, well, okay, I'm just not gonna do magic. In this case, they're just talking about the idea that if you want to do really big things, often things are sacrificed, and they just accept that, you know, a goat's gonna die, or so on and so forth, or whatever. Or it's just normal for witches to, like I said in the first episode, or the episode previous to this, just the idea that you have to do some sort of Latin speaking, some sort of spell, incantation, hand movement. And here's Sabrina, no consequences, no sacrifices, no incantations. She's just literally quiet for a second and instantly makes it happen. And it's kind of terrifying. Hilda even makes a great point at some point, saying, like, there's gotta be some cosmic toll it's adding up. Like, this is somehow accumulating, and it might come back to bite you in the ass. And this is where Sabrina's still young and naive, because she's saying, well, I just don't think that it is. I think this is what I feel. And I think Hilda made too good of a point. You can't just stop and think. I mean, Sabrina's not been pissing me off as much this season. Like, she's making smarter, cleverer choices than last. She's growing. But she is still 16, and she still is a kid learning. And no insult, by the way, no insult to any 16-year-olds. I'm not ageist. I really dislike when people talk to even children as young as 4-year-olds as if they aren't taking in the world and have some sort of opinion. This is like a sideline tangent, but it always kind of drives me nuts. Because, like, I remember being a kid, and I remember a lot of adult conversations being had either about or around me, and very much being aware of what it meant, even at that young of an age. And when you talk to most kids, I mean, like, when I talk to my cousins, like, they're very aware. And so it always drives me a little bit nuts when people kind of just have that viewpoint of, like, oh, well, they're 16, they don't know. I'm like, you could argue that for a certain level of, like, mistakes or something like that, but people are more capable than you realize, no matter their age or background or whatever. Don't be surprised. We all started somewhere. So, anyways, she makes that mistake of being like, go, 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 and I'm gonna be like Sabrina. Whether it was like Harvey's brother or something smaller, when she, like, with Thea with the knots, she makes decisions too quickly without considering all the ideas. And she really has to slow down and be aware of the effect. You could argue that's the consequence of her magic, of not the consequence of, like, taking a life for a life, but rather watching what happens when you mess with something that's just naturally supposed to happen. Like, maybe you should leave it alone type of idea. Anyways, so while they're kind of going about this and Sabrina's figuring out her stuff, she makes a point to her aunt and her cousin that maybe she's always been a healer. Maybe she's, just waking up to this. And this is when she has a whole interesting conversation with Nick about her dad's manifesto. But even this conversation about manifesto, and this is what I love about the writing on the show, I'm still left hesitant. I'm still I don't trust her brother. I mean, like, for her mom to warn her and, like, go out of her way to try to baptize her and make sure secretly that she was somehow safe from her father's influence. Like, it's like she knew her father was going to basically sell her out to the Dark Lord. And that basically is what happened. And that being said, and those type of situations, the manifesto is kind of interesting. Sabrina makes the point that maybe the manifesto of humans and witches being brought together and the idea being brought to the anti-pope many, like 2 decades ago or whatever, was supposed to be a kind of new idea of witches 2.0. That maybe she's capable of all these abilities because she's a mortal and a witch. That's really left to be said, especially at the end of this episode with certain information to be said. I don't know, like, if you are half mortal, half witch, is that possible? I have no idea. Or is, like, someone like Sabrina have that extra capability because it's just her? You don't know. And even then, did he truly want witches to evolve? Or was Sabrina's specific birth coming into existence? Because she even said this manifesto clearly existed so that she could be born. Could this existence be much more sinister? Is that truly his plan to better all witches, or was he still truly serving the Dark Lord? Again, we don't even know his, like, conversation with the Dark Lord of, like, how deep it was. Like, is he currently in hell living his best life right now with the Dark Lord after he's died? Was he a pawn? Was Sabrina always supposed to be this, like, figure, or would this have worked out with any other wizard who committed himself enough? I mean, I don't know. Like, a lot of people really commit themselves to the Dark Lord, so it's hard to say. Either way, they talk about the idea of maybe building their own little, kind of, so to speak, apostles. Which this is when acutely and appropriately the two people that had once been slain and resurrected by her kind of pop up. I love that kind of weird modern Jesus-y moment of, like, the apostles, I'm jokingly calling them the apostles, or the followers pop up and they're like, can I sit with you at lunch? Because you kind of, like, brought me back to life last night, and, like, that's super cool. I like how she wants to gather people and potentially change things and have that conversation start to be open. Even Nick isn't against it or have a problem with it, but that being said, the council basically comes back. They come back with with Father Blackwood and Zelda, which I totally forgot. We'll get there in one moment, but I just want to mention Roz. She's got over her shit, and Sabrina lovingly brings back her vision. Love that moment. Very sweet. I'm very happy for her in that magic moment. But again, it horrifies Hilda because it's like, oh, cool, glad you got your vision back. Have no idea what this means for all of humanity and which kind, but, like, that's cool. And I also love her popping in and out whenever she can, like in the bathroom casually. So she gets summoned, Sabrina gets summoned along with everyone else, because the reality is, Father Blackwood's back. Terrifyingly enough, Zelda is, like, she is so great and kind of a love and hate relationship for me, because you love her, like, witty, hilarious banter, the way she kind of walks this line of, like, diabolicness. I mean, even she says a line along the lines of, like, it's diabolical, and not in the fun way. But at the same time, she does a lot of things that put Sabrina further and further in danger with Father Blackwood. So it's really upsetting to see her be so subservient initially in a weird 1950s dress and be so dumb and idiotic in front of her sister. Like, that, she basically is stripped of everything we love about Zelda. And what's even more terrifying is Father Blackwood, because conveniently the anti-pope is now dead, he is in a position where he's very quick to call himself the anti-pope, but in reality, he's in kind of like a trial period, and the council reminds him of this. So they basically are like, they have a conversation, and basically Nick and Sabrina, for their heroicism, are enrolled back in school. So that situation was short-lived. And everything's okay, but they're still going to murder Ambrose because, as far as they're concerned, there's no proof otherwise that he was under any influence. He for sure just killed the anti-pope. That is enough and understandable to get rid of that person. Which I wonder if that happened in the Catholic Church. Like, would people be so quick to just kill the person that did it, or would they want a reason why? I imagine there would be some sort of questioning before there'd be a trial, or there'd be like a trial is what I'm trying to say. Because, and this is what's so interesting to me, why they don't want to ask why. It makes you wonder how their world works. It's a little bit unrealistic, to be honest with you, because, like, again, this goes back to the idea of, like, if someone did that, wouldn't everyone even if they're angry and they still want that person's death, wouldn't you want to know why they did it? Like, what was the motivation? Because many people don't agree with that religion and they just kind of mind their own business. Like, why would you get that person specifically? So yeah, it's just an interesting idea of like why you want to commit to the anti-pope. And this is a huge reason why you would want to have this conversation. Why would you do this to the anti-pope when Ambrose has been nothing but loyal? And he's quite old. Like, there would have been a lot of time till now for him to do something erratic like this. Again, they bring up the point that he almost tried to blow up the Vatican. But again, that feels more in alignment with witchcraft than humanity. So, still confusing. Anyways, so Sabrina needs to bring up some form of proof with Leviathan. But this is when it gets kind of weird and tricky. And this is when I'm just like, again, I'm just smelling that Riverdale and I don't like it. So we have Faustus being this, like, pivotal evil role. He's taken control of Zelda. He knows he has the upper hand. But I hate that Prudence is so on his side. I kind of had to give her the sideways look and be like, girl, you clearly want to know what the deal is with Sabrina. You clearly are excited by the idea and prospect that she could represent something that you care about so much. Why are you still fucking helping your father, who was nothing but, like, evil ideas for you? And you get what I'm saying. Anyway, it was frustrating that she gave the idea that if she technically produces a miracle, because she can't resist saving her cousin, that would work in the favor of Faustus Blackwood. So therefore, they want to do whatever they can to obviously thwart her getting her hands on Leviathan. And in addition to getting her hands on Leviathan, just if she brought him back to life again, if there was some awareness of that, it would start to make the council feel insecure. Because as much as the council thinks that they are quote unquote religious and a leader of the Dark Lord, the fact that they would prevent something that would be in benefit of the Dark Lord, something that could falter their leadership. Again, this is where some misogyny comes in again. They're against that. They will do whatever they can to execute this person. I'm like, honey, if you executed the Dark Lord's waifu, do you know what hell would haveth come on you? And that includes Faustus Blackwood, which is why it's so crazy to me the Dark Lord hasn't spoken up till then. And part of me wonders if he's just allowing this to play out because it's a combination of him being cruel and knowing in the end, like, you can think you have power now, honey, but, like, ultimately nothing can happen to Sabrina. I mean, she even admits, like, she doesn't think she can be killed. I mean, she technically resurrected herself twice, is my theory. So anyways, we got Faustus with his agenda, Prudence with her agenda, and so on and so forth. And this is when Sabrina ends up... She does successfully find Leviathan, bring him back to life, and get that evidence. By the way, Dorian Gray sold her out. What a bitch. But I couldn't tell if he did that out of fear. He's misogynist, because he even says he didn't do it in allegiance to the Judas Society, interestingly enough. Anyways, but... what ends up happening is when you think, oh my god, we got Leviathan, we've got the answers, everything's cool. Fucking Zelda, because she's brainwashed, she's being controlled, goes and kills Leviathan for the father, Blackwood. And when you think that we're going to go through this annoying back and forthness of good and evil and all this bullshit in between, thankfully, Hilda is able to successfully break Zelda's control. By the way, love the constant little mini moments, even if they're small, where Sabrina just keeps successfully manifesting things, making them exist, happen so quickly. It's startling time and time again, even for Zelda, to see their power and try to understand what's happening and still questioning and wondering what it's equaling to. And that's so funny. I think that's a really interesting conversation in religion. It's like you say you want these things and then you're being shown these miracles and then you're terrified of it. I don't know, it's just a really interesting, funny conversation. So, anyways, going forward, so this is when we start to have, like, an interesting situation happen. So, okay, so Leviathan's dead, right? And no one technically, besides Dorian, showed that he was brought back to life. So, she could have walked in with Leviathan, had all the answers, whatever. But now that he's dead, unfortunately, very, 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 very sad and disgusting, She's put in a position where she's like, okay, what can I do to save Ambrose without doing a full-on miracle? Because basically the point finally gets brought to her that if she does something that, and this is what Zelda knows, because thankfully Zelda, unbeknownst to Blackwood, was awake during that whole time. She was just being controlled. She's very much aware of all of his plans and what he wants to accomplish. And she takes one for the team. She really won me over that she's still going to pretend to be his idiot bride to get more information. And she's willing to suffer quietly for the betterment of their witch kind. That's when I'm like, I hope she doesn't have some dumb moment of trying to defend her as a husband. That'd be really poor writing. I think at this point she's done with him. But she's also a really tactful, intelligent person, and she sees opportunities and she takes them. I mean, that's why she was only going to marry him in the first place. But she's not going to move away and be done with the ability to know deeper information about him. And I love when, at some point, when she has, like, a red lipstick on and she pretends to be like, I just want to look beautiful for you. Father Perv got so excited by that. It was hilarious. His smile was... I hope there's like a blooper scene where he's making that fun smile and then he bursts into laughter because it's just so fucking funny. So Sabrina's like, okay, if I do any of these miracles in front of the council, they'll want to execute me. So I can't really like do anything. When they go to execute Ambrose, by the way, Prudence went to see Ambrose. She clearly is secretly wanting to know about Sabrina. And I don't even think to sell her out. I mean, she's genuinely curious, but it's like, I hate that dumb moment where, like, when he's going to die and she says, like, you had honor when you lived, you'll die with honor. I hate that dumb moment because she really looks like she's sad that Ambrose is going to die and she's upset by it. And I'm like, bitch, then speak up. This is not the Prudence I know and love. It's a combination of a little bit of shitty writing and just, like, uncharacteristic behavior where I'm like, girl, this just isn't you. Like, I understand why you wanted Father Blackwood's name. You saw maybe you would get a more opportunities, kind of like Zelda. I don't blame her for wanting to move up in the Church of Night. And also she had her moments where she basically did things that would insult her father's ego, and that still felt like her. But these, well, she's still being treated like shit, this like intense loyalty that's like hurting everyone around her. Prudence is way more loyal to her loved ones and her morals than she lets on. So, like, this just feels so out of character. But then again, maybe her idea is that she can't go against her father right now and she can talk to Ambrose in private. So that she would get more done doing it that way. You never know. Sometimes Prudence is even too intelligent for me. Oh, my lord. Point proven. So, anyways, going forward, when the big showdown comes and they're going to axe him, Sabrina doesn't do anything, and they even when they try to blame her for, like, when they guillotine him and his head doesn't come off, but the executioner's head comes off instead. By the way, no one mourned his death. Poor executioner and his family. Turns out Hilda privately did a spell, so he was safe. By the way, poor Ambrose was probably feeling that guillotine in his neck and was freaking the fuck out. But that's that perfect moment when technically Sabrina didn't do any magic. She didn't do anything that saved him, and that being the case proved that she didn't do anything, because as far as anyone knows, no one knows besides her like aunties and stuff around her that she can just do stuff without incantation. I mean, she can do whatever she wants whenever she wants, so if they had known that, they would have said in that moment like, oh look, she can just do it without doing anything. Well, how do we know she didn't do it? But she really didn't. And she comes up with a more intelligent plan. In that moment, it basically solidifies that none of this shit's happening. Father Blackwood's full of shit. The council has nothing to be intimidated by anyone, taking over their shit. I mean, I'm sure they would be very upset to hear she's starting her own little kind of clergy, anything opposing their power. But what happens is she successfully, this is how fucking powerful she is, she successfully summons the Dark Lord. And, I mean, to be fair, the girl has talked to him numerous times. It's kind of fucking perfect. And he comes in, and he full-on ends it and basically says he's disgraced with Father Blackwood. This is perfect. This is beautiful. In this moment, everything kind of gets solved. And again, it's still smelling a little bit too much like Riverdale with the fucking Father Blackwood as like the ultimate villain. It's not enough tete-a-tete and intelligent back and forth interesting conversations for me. But I loved this moment again. They won me over again with that ending. That in that moment, basically he's stripped of this anti-popeness, which I loved. In fact, the council kind of like almost makes it seem like they're done with Church of Night altogether, but either way, they're done with him, so it took away his ultimate power he had for a fucking second. Everything gets taken away. Loved that. It proves that they have nothing to worry about with Sabrina, so she's safe, she's hidden, they realize the consequences. And her cousin gets saved, but that problem kind of gets finally done with. We're done with. So Ambrose is finally safe. I'm happy for him at this point. He kind of has the best of both worlds because he's finally no longer in house imprisonment, but he for sure is no longer aligned with Father Blackwood or working with him or any sexist beliefs, which we learn was really only because of Leviathan. And Luke's gone. I totally forgot. Fucking Luke's gone. So finally, I'm really excited and curious to see Ambrose as an individual character now moving forward, because finally we get to just see the lovable version of him that I'm sure you loved him as much as I did when he was under house arrest. So we really get to see that personality, but now out in the world, and I'm excited. But this is the big deal, though. Again, the ending. This little plot line gets snaked in. I love it. It was very small and simple how they threw it in. A little bit quick, but whatever, it's fine. It's totally cool. So, obviously, Harvey was a little bit shooketh seeing his ex-girlfriend as a weird, wide-eyed, levitating, fire-handed, like, demon witch thing. I mean, that brings all of his fears into realization. He's still not fully accepted that being a witch is okay. But he battles with the fact that he really loves her still. I think he does. He says he doesn't, but I think there's a part of him that always will. I think he really is committed to Roz and is in that relationship with her. But he can't get over the fact that, this is where it's really interesting via closure. Like, no one cheated on anybody. Like, she broke up with him because how are they going to overcome something as detrimental as being responsible for his father or his brother's death? And the fact that after she saved everybody, she didn't feel it was safe enough for them to be together. They still really had feelings for each other for a while. So he decides to take his dad unusually up on the offer of going to the mines. I thought that was this is what I'm talking about when I say a boy with a lot of gusto and no powers. I think he was going specifically to maybe run into that goat guy, aka the Dark Lord. And I'm like, honey, what were you going to do? What were you going to do? How was this going to end well with your little pickaxe and helmet? Seriously. Even your girlfriend is more powerful than her peers, and her peers could take you on. You're going to take on the very thing that's more powerful than anyone? Oh my lord. Anyways, doesn't matter. That being said, he has kind of a little bit of a Scooby-Doo moment with Thea, which I thought was really cool, because when he's down in the mines, he sees there's a mine, number 13, interestingly enough, boarded up, and he hears a woman calling to him, which I thought was kind of interesting, learning that the woman in white, quote-unquote, is the guardian, but is calling him in. I wonder if we're going to think about it, she's almost like a version of a siren or a mermaid. And maybe instead of luring people away from the mines, because that might be really hard to do, it's easier just to lure them in and then execute them off. By the way, I love that she's referred to as the woman in white in a journal, and it seems very romantic or supernatural in that theme, but she's like a gremlin crawling all over people, freaking out. I would love to know, we're probably never going to get to know her background story of who is she? Why is she there? She probably became very Gollum-like from being down in the mines for so long. But either way, she was protecting something. And so Theo, who successfully saves Harvey. Even Theo is stronger and more capable than Harvey. I'm just going to keep pointing that out. God love Harvey. God love Rosalind. I really like him as a person. He's very likable and he's a very great actor. He's an awesome actor. But yeah, even little baby Theo is kicking ass. So they end up getting successfully past this immortal Gollum white woman with a simple pickaxe. Apparently the pickaxe is helpful. And they end up seeing something important. Sabrina is having this sweet magical moment with some of the church kids that Roz is she mingles with. And Nick Scratch and everybody, and she's having a moment where she's literally about to show them that she's going to fly. A nice little homage to Sabrina the Teenage Witch flying on a broom, both in the comic books and in the cute little sitcom TV show with Melissa Joan Hart. So we have this moment where she is about to do something really important. Basically, they even make it clear that once she does this, she can never go back. I thought this was really interesting, and this is where she's again reckless. Because what? You're going to show this. And keep in mind, Prudence is there. You think she isn't going to run back to her fucking dad and shit's going to go down again? And so you're in this position where, or was it Dorcas and Agatha? Either way, they would report back to their sister. So either way, you know Dorcas is there because she's like, you saved my boo thing. Thanks, girl. You think that after this happens, people aren't going to tattle, and then that's going to come back to bite her in the ass in the very way she was trying to prevent with the whole council and everything in the previous episode. Or wait, was it this episode? No, it was this fucking episode. So you see what I'm saying? Reckless. Love her, though. But he interestingly stops her with basically being like, if you ever loved me, come down. Very powerful words. Not only because, I mean, Roz looks visibly upset, understandable. I mean, like, why did he choose those words? I'm just going to point that out. Why did you choose those words? But to be fair, I mean, if you're going to get anything to stop this girl who's so tenacious and no matter how well she knows you, she's going to move forward with her plans. I mean, if you're going to get anything to stop her, that made her take a moment of being like, well, I really did love you, and I do respect your opinion. Okay, well, I'll hear what you have to say. I can always fly in a moment or two later. They end up stopping. I mean, I imagine how hilarious it is. Like, she literally leaves her own party. Everyone's like, what the hell? You built this up and you just left us all here at your house? So she ends up being led to the mines, and in the mines, there is a creepy mosaic, literally of her face, with the wide eyes, the thorns, and being surrounded. And she immediately, obviously, freaks the fuck out, and it's basically she's like the harbinger of hell, I think was something along the lines. So it shows that she is a prophet. And it shows it is quite sinister. I mean, we already kind of knew this because the Dark Lord and Lilith were talking about it before. But essentially, she's in a really serious position of, like, without a doubt. I mean, she even full on says, I am evil. And it kind of ends with very, like, it really turns the tables on her, all her, like, can-do attitude of, like, should I move forward with bringing witches and humans together? I mean, to be fair, like, they even talk about the idea of, like, her being half human, half witch being maybe a catalyst to basically helping control both of them, which is quite sinister. Kind of, it takes away, it puts a lot of doubts in your eyes, the idea of bringing witches and humans together, because it makes you think, like, should I even be doing this, or am I walking right into the prophecy that's been built for me? It also, again, brings up the idea, and this is what I was talking about earlier with the idea of the dad. Like, did he do this? Did he know this? Was this his goal? Like, is her dad a dick? Now, she doesn't know that Lilith was the one who glamored herself and pretended to be the ghost of her father. That whole idea of, like, what was it he asked her to do? Bring down something? I don't remember. I'm surprised she's not taking a moment now to keep questioning her father's intentions and if he was good or not. Because we know without a doubt her mom was. Her mom even seemed like when she was baptizing her, it was not for the benefit of the whole prophecy thing. It was like maybe her mom knew and was trying to prevent it in some way. So we're in this really weird situation. A lot of dark sinister ahead of us. And I like how it's written. We're like, this is how awesome it is. I always say to myself when you're watching something, what do you do to prevent any cliches? Well, you kind of already present the information up, right for, like, you skip right to the information. Like, many times before we've heard that she's the prophet, lots of things like that. We've already known this. But in addition to it being known, they take away any of your worries or focusing on that as an idea. Like, you don't get lost in thinking of that as the goal. Instead, you're lost in the journey and the idea. Because we're being told the dad had this manifesto. And then we're being told maybe he had it for this reason. Maybe he knew about the prophet. But even then, did he want this to happen? Or was his intentions to prevent this? And he felt that maybe, well, what seems like the prophet, seems like the harbinger, maybe that's the Dark Lord's intentions, maybe he sees it as different. Because, I mean, I really feel like her dad did have great intentions for being with her mother. I mean, they even said that he took the time to show himself slowly to her as a warlock. So, just a lot of ideas buzzing around that I can't wait to explore. But again, it's 3 episodes now with the whole Father Blackwood thing. His level of evilness and the stakes being there, and even Prudence really having allegiance with him, is just something very sitting sour in my mouth. I don't like it. I'm not looking forward to it. I think it's one of the poorer plot lines in the show so far. I'm kind of concerned how this series will end. But we have 2 more episodes to go, so get pumped. Subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Become a Patreon supporter today. And just know that I love you in the most platonic way possible.